Okay, gotcha. So we're gonna play a little game. So I'm gonna say a phrase to start off, and then you guys have to try to finish it. Road work ahead. Hurricane Katrina. And look at all those chickens. Yeah. Now these references have probably conjured up some sort of image in your mind. An image of a guy on the highway, or like a middle schooler in a food pantry, or a little girl looking at a flock of ducks. And these are all Vine. Now some of you are saying, why are you talking about Vine? Isn't Vine dead? Well, I'm here to tell you that Vine really is still relevant. It's not as dead as we'd like to say it is. Every time you reference or quote one of the myriads of vines that are out there, you're really perpetuating and pushing the relevancy of Vine even further. Vine is still alive because the jokes are some of the most quoted things in our culture, because Vine is where a lot of our sort of comedic video editing has come from, and due to the fact that former Viners are now some of the most prolific and popular internet influencers. Now first, Vine jokes are some of the most quoted jokes of our generation. How often have you been walking around the campus or the city and just heard someone from like over there that you're just randomly pops in your ear, like, and they were roommates or something like that? Or how many of you have heard a friend or a family member, or you yourself have said one yourself, said a reference yourself? I've talked about this topic a lot with my family and with my friends. And one of the instances of that was it was last fall when I was just, getting to know and talking with my bro sis in the plaza, when I brought this topic up. I said, Vine is still very relevant. And they were like, oh, no, it can't be relevant because I didn't watch and still don't really know any Vines. And then without skipping a beat afterwards, I just said Hurricane Katrina, and they kind of finished with a Hurricane Tortilla. And they just kind of knew that even though they hadn't seen that Vine, they knew the quote. They knew that it was still relevant. Another example of Vine being heavily quoted is the term yeet. Now, yeet as a word has existed, or as a phrase, before Vine, but since the posting of this Vine, it has experienced a sort of new definition and a renaissance to mean something being thrown very like that. This word has taken the culture by storm. It has even been, and it's even transcended the demographic that Vine typically has drawn in. I used to be in a Christian gun group called Reformed and Reloaded. Ew, Facebook. And a lot of like older guys, well into their like 50s, were using the term yeet on a very regular basis, to the point where you could hardly go through a post without seeing it used at least once in the comments or in the post directly. But it's not just the quotes that have continued on and are still being referenced. The style of editing that Vine used, that Viners typically used, has also continued on well past the life of Vine. Now, many of you have probably seen some sort of like face warping or like bass boosting audio to the point where it like cracks the audio. This style of editing is particularly popular among former Viners and those who grew up on Vine. And I'm going to show you just a couple of vines just to, give you guys kind of a
could be next. Skin. I nurture my skin.
That's looking what I expected. Now let me go the other way.
No, could be next. Skin. I nurture my skin. No, tell her.
That was not. It's not. This is why technology is not reliant, guys. There. I'll just do this. Let's see if it plays. Well, anyway, this is not playing, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, you guys saw that vine. So that at least that gives you some sort of basis as to.
Keep talking. I'm just gonna set it back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you a basis of kind of what I'm talking about. This weird face warping. There was another one that I showed that gave an example of bass boosting. That it was the power of Christ compels you vine. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. It's just this lady yelling at her dog and the dog's barking back. These are all example of what has grown into what's called a deep fried meme. Deep fried memes are where, again, as stated, you distort the image, the sound, and that's done by bass boosting and sort of warping the image and overexposing the color. And that's what they look like. They're very weird and very odd, but I think that the deep fried memes are kind of a development in the evolution of this style of editing. If you think back to the clips, or the one clip, unfortunately, you can kind of see just like the development a little bit of this. In Gen Z, and often what this is it just it adds a layer of irony to the joke, and it just increases the intensity of joke so far to the point where like the mundanity of the words are just kind of overdone by the intensity of the image. I mean, take this one for example of we were out of chicken nuggets. That means our sleepover is over. And then there's just this monster Steve SpongeBob combo going on over there. And it's just kind of, there's just this juxtaposition of intense and mundane. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of this former Viner, Curtis Connor. He was very popular amongst, he was pretty popular on Vine and has grown to have about 3.45 million subscribers on YouTube now. And if hopefully it'll work, maybe not. I had another video or two that I was going to show, but for some reason that's not working. But basically it was just two examples of bass boosting. He did a lot of warping and color changing and overexposing. And maybe it's going to work. I kind of doubt it, but. No, okay.
The primitive forms of artificial intelligence we already.
That's totally fine. I don't know how to fix it now. Dang. Okay, thank you. But yeah, those were just two examples of bass boosting that unfortunately did not work. But although this video warping has it admittedly has gone away a little bit. It used to be very popular within the last couple of years. There. And now, but what about, some of you may be saying, what about the users and all that sort of stuff? Vine was used as a catalyst for several people to experience stardom. This stardom has come in the form of internet influencers, and many of the most famous and creative YouTubers were former Viners. For example, Drew Gooden, and Danny Gonzalez, and the before-mentioned Curtis Connor are just 3 examples of that. Danny has about 5 million subscribers. Drew has 3.34 million, and I just said that Curtis has 3.45 million subscribers. This is wildly successful for YouTube. I highlight this specifically just so that I can mention the fact that me and my wife, while we were dating, we went to a Curtis Connor, and we went to see all 3 of them in the We Are Two Different People tour, and it was just a lot of fun. And the venue was packed. It was relatively small, but still held an enormous amount of people. In fact, pretty much every show on the tour was sold out. These guys represent just some of the most influential. But another group is Cody Ko and Noah Miller. Cody was probably one of the most famous Viners, if not the most famous Viner. And then Noel had a couple random viral Vines, but he wasn't super popular. They met at a job that they had and then became friends, and now they do a podcast of the name I will not mention, and it is pretty inappropriate. And these guys have even been featured in the most famous Twitch stream. I don't know if you guys have heard of Ludwig at all, but they were featured on his stream at one point. And these guys also have toured around the country, going on doing a comedy routine together. And of course, you can't mention successful Viners, former Viners, without talking about the Paul brothers, Jake and Logan Paul. So you guys have known these guys are used to be wrapped up in controversy, or still are to some extent. But Logan now has a podcast called Impulsive, and Jake now does boxing matches. I don't know if he still vlogs or not. But at the height of their YouTube fame, they both drew in millions of subscribers and viewers to their YouTube videos. This just goes to show the legacy of that Vine still has. There are many more former Viners that I could have mentioned that are still popular to some extent, or at least still make content. Without Vine, many of these guys would still be doing the jobs that they were doing before. Vine is not dead. Although the platform is gone, the content and the people from Vine have evolved and adapted to YouTube and other forms of media. Former Viners have gone on to be prolific entertainers and influencers all throughout the internet. And Vine has fundamentally changed the course of internet culture and is seen as a cultural icon. So far as to say that people have taken TikTok, which was not something that was meant to be like Vine, and now they've created kind of a Vine 2 in some ways, although they are still very different. In the future, Vine references are probably going to be like the cultural joke that we tell our kids that they just won't understand at all because they don't really know what Vine is. The Vine era, as I said, was a major cultural time that so many of us have been a part of in one way or another. This shared cultural experience has brought many people together and has helped connect so many people that would have never known each other had this app not existed. It just goes to show that having shared experiences is truly what connects people. This app has been removed from the app stores and has been disconnected from any server. But, however, I don't see that Vine will be leaving our vocabulary anytime soon. Thank you.